Guys, it's your girl, Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, where we teach you how to start at the top of the speaking market instead of working your way up from the bottom. During this show, you will hear solo episodes from me, where I'll show you how I have landed and negotiated 5- and 6-figure speaking contracts and licensing deals. You'll also hear from our amazing guests who have grown enormous speaking businesses by utilizing sales and marketing principles that work. If you want to grow your speaking business, listen to this podcast, and then afterwards, head on over to ashleynicolekirkwood.shop and grab my book, Speak Your Way to Cash, How to Start at the Top of the Speaking Market instead of working your way up from the bottom. Ready to dive in? Let's go. Hey, it's your girl, Ashley Kirkwood. Today, we are doing a rerun episode of one of our favorite Speak Your Way to Cash podcast interviews. I know you're going to get crazy value out of this. So go ahead, listen in, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Let's get into this interview. Hey guys, it's Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, and I'm super excited to have Cathy with us today. And we're going to be talking about how to utilize your book to enhance your speaking career and also your career. So tell us a little bit about your career and how speaking has played a role in that.
Well, I've been a speaker for more than 30 years now, and I love speaking. I don't necessarily like writing, but I love what writing has done for my speaking career. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping aspiring authors become published authors. It started with my career. I was a human resources consultant and a speaker trainer. And then I wanted to reinvent myself. You know, it seems there comes a point in everybody's career where you just need to do something new and different. And I was at that point and didn't know what to do. Got a call from my chapter president of the National Speakers Association. And he said, Cathy, I understand that you wrote one of your books in less than 6 weeks. Is that right? And I said, yeah, actually, 4 of my 5 books at the time were written in less than 6 weeks. And he said, amazing. Do you have a process? And I said, yeah, I guess I do. And then he said, would you be willing to give a program about your process to our chapter? And I said, absolutely. But then he said, but we really have 2 of our chapter members who are working on their books. Would you be willing to coach them using your process and then give a program? And I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I started coaching these 2 friends. And pretty quickly they said to me, have you ever thought about being a book coach? And I had to say, truthfully, no. I mean, I was like, is there such a thing? Is there a need? And they assured me that there was. And so we gave my program to the chapter. And once again, my friends came up to me and said, have you ever thought about being a book coach? So that's what started it all for me. And it's been just great fun ever since.
That is awesome. And so many speakers want to write a book, but they find it really challenging to get their thoughts on paper. So what would you recommend to someone who has a level of expertise and just lives a full life? So they're working a job, they have a business, they have kids, maybe they have a family. Yes. How do you even get started? What is step 1 for getting a book on paper?
I think step 1 is getting real clarity about your book and its strategic plan and how it aligns with your career or your business. So first deciding, okay, what is it that you know really well enough? What is it that you're called on to do? So that's developing your thesis statement, identifying your target audience, your reader. So that should be, if you're a speaker, it should be the same kinds of folks that you speak and provide services for. And then what is the structure of the book? What does it look like? Getting really clear on those things are the best solution to being able to go forward and write it pretty quickly.
And what would you say the book has done for your speaking career specifically?
Well, originally when I was in human resources, it established me as a thought leader in that space. And even this is kind of a fun story, but the book that I wrote, I wrote it in 1989. It was published in 90. I was able to get a very large consulting assignment for that work. I've been working with this client now for like 3 years, and it's been a nice 5-figure salary. But it's all because of the expertise from that book that I wrote back that was published in 1990. So that's the power of a book. And then when I was starting my work as a book coach, the only credential I really had was the fact that I had now written a book about how to write books. And that became my calling card for my new business. So that's the power of a book. It can help you let your career just explode. It can also help you pivot and turn, because I know during these times, a lot of people are pivoting and turning. So a book can be a powerful tool to help you go in the direction that you really want to go.
That makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I've always recommended to speakers who have a book is to use your book as your marketing collateral. So mailing out a book is not going to get thrown away, but mailing out, maybe just a letter or sending an email blindly might get thrown away. And after I've had calls with clients about my speaking topics and they're like, oh, you have a book on that? I'm like, yeah. I'll just send it to you. I mean, because for me, printing an individual book is $5? And so after someone's well qualified, it makes sense to just send them the book. And it's why I would love to write, I'm going to write a second book on the love method of communication, which is what I train companies on now. But finding time to write it is definitely challenging. So as a writing coach, what are your thoughts on ghostwriting? And is that a viable option for speakers today? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not a fan of ghostwriting because, especially for speakers, because I think when someone hears you speak, they love you, they want to take a little bit of you home with them. And so many times with a ghostwriter, it just loses something in translation. There's something about your voice coming through loud and clear with your own book. So I'm a big fan of having speakers, especially, write their own books. Now, having said that, though, you got to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest strategies is do not put write my book on your to-do list. Never.
Okay.
Put it on your calendar.
Okay.
The difference is we typically go to our to-do list and we work by what's urgent, what's about ready to catch fire.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things we focus on. When a book, while it's always important, will never be urgent. So if we're going to get it done, we need to put it on our calendars. So anything big, important, like writing a book, put it on the calendar.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of your expertise, you said that you wrote a book in 6 weeks. I think almost anyone would agree on this who's listening to this or watching this, that they can finish something in 6 weeks if that is a commitment. If that's the time commitment, they can commit to something for the next 6 weeks. How did you write your book in 6 weeks? Were you just writing full time for 6 weeks? Were you sitting down an hour a day? What did that look like day to day to actually get a book done in 6 weeks?
That is a great question. So basically, it looked like devoting a chunk of time, not every day, but certain days. So for me, that looks probably more like 3 days a week, 2 hours a day. Usually I say to get a book written in 6 weeks, you need to have at least 10 hours a week that you could devote. But that's not every day necessarily. It may be you're going to write for 2 5-hour days or 5 days at a couple hours each or whatever, but you need to make it work for you. But you need to have that threshold of getting about 10 hours in per week to make it in that 6 week mark. And then to just be very deliberate. You outline the book first, you have a vision for the entirety of your book, and then you map it out. So like, for example, in my book on writing, On Your Mark from First Word to First Draft in 6 weeks, basically 6 chapters. And when I was writing it, I wanted to do it in 6 weeks. So I needed to do a chapter a week or more because I knew that there would be some weeks that I might get behind or whatever. So I wanted to work at least ahead of that. So that meant getting a chapter a week done.
And what is the name of that book again? On Your Mark from?
Yes, it's On Your Mark from First Word to First Draft in 6 weeks.
Okay, from first word to first draft in 6 weeks. That's going to be that sounds like that's a book that everyone needs.
Yes.
That's perfect. So I will actually put that on the screen for people who are actually watching.
Thank you.
That way they can get that. So just look that up on Amazon and I'm sure it'll come right up and you all can get that book. But I think that will be good because it is very difficult to figure out, when do I have time to write the book? Should I just hire a ghostwriter? And similar to copywriters, it is very rare that you find someone that can really capture your voice.
Yes.
But one of the other things that I think holds people back is, okay, maybe I can write the book. I can spend the 10 hours to write it. But then what are all the other components that I have to be ready to invest in? So what's the investment? If you self-publish and you write it yourself, then what should you be saving to spend on a good editor and then getting it all the way to Amazon or some other platform that you can publish on?
Well, you can do it in very few dollars, or you can spend a whole lot of money.
Okay.
And really the choice is yours, and it depends on how tech savvy you are. One of my authors, for example, she's very, very tech savvy, and she's very much a do-it-yourself kind of a gal. So she was able to do her book from start to finish by herself. I don't recommend editing your book yourself, but she did. And because she was on a really tight budget, and she put it up on Amazon herself. And I think it cost her less than a couple $100. Now that's the exception to the rule, because most people are not as tech savvy as Amy is. But there are other options that you can have someone do it for you or guide you through part of the process yourself. And the price tag is anywhere from several $1,000s to, say, $7,000, definitely under $10,000.
Okay.
But that's for if you went to somebody and you said, I need you to edit it, to do the cover, to do the internal design, you could probably have it all done for $7,000.
Okay. Perfect. And then do you have an editor that you recommend, or do you edit as well, or no? Because I know you said you didn't always love the writing process.
Yeah. I am not an editor. I certainly don't edit my own stuff, but I help my clients with developmental editing, which is sort of like, are all the parts there? Does it all flow? Does it have enough stories? Does it need any further explanation? That's developmental editing, and I can do that. But when it comes to wordsmithing and grammar and punctuation, I need to hire somebody to do that. And typically, I do have some editors that I work with. And then some of the publishers that I work with, it's one-stop shopping, so that if they are doing your book, they're doing all of the editing and all of that work.
Okay, perfect. One of the things that helped me with my first book was having the publisher at the time. When I was stalling, it took me 2 years because I didn't look at the edited drafts. I just took forever. And towards the end, I was like, well, I just need accountability. So I paid her to basically read a chapter a week that I would finish and edit. And then she'd give me feedback and I would just move on with the next chapter. Is that something that you offer one-on-one, or do you only have group programs right now?
No, I have one-on-one coaching programs. So in fact, most of my clients are one-on-one coaching. And then I do have a group coaching cohort and some other options, because we don't all need the same thing to get our book across the finish line. Some need the accountability, some need more cheerleading and support in that way. So I have different programs for different types of writers based on the needs that they have.
Okay, perfect. And then you also mentioned, I know you've done quite a bit of speaking and you've landed some larger consulting contracts as a result of your book. Do you do any outbound pitching? And can you talk about how you were able to pitch and whether a book helped in that process as well?
A book always helps you in terms of your credibility. You have so much more visibility and credibility when you are a book author. So back in the space when I was doing a lot of my work around the aging workforce was one of my topics as a human resources professional. That absolutely locked me in. My book was the first book on the aging workforce. And so it really established me as a thought leader in that space. So that's what a book can do for you.
So were most of your leads inbound then because they were reading your book and just reaching out, or were you doing any outbound pitching? So emailing people, trying to get meetings. How were you developing your client base?
Okay. I've always been very proactive. I don't think that in most times the business doesn't just find you. Yeah. I think that you have to find the business. So I've always been big on regular calling. I also have a newsletter, so writing through my newsletter, also writing through LinkedIn and other social media outlets has been always a really consistent part of my outbound marketing. So it's about creating that presence, but then following up on each and every lead.
Now, you mentioned something that we don't talk about a lot on the show, which is outbound calling. Are these people that you know, or are you cold calling?
Well, I typically don't believe in cold calling, but I have done cold calling and it's also worked. Obviously, if you can have someone warm up a lead for you, make an introduction, that's always preferable to getting on the phone cold. But I'm a big believer that sometimes to make the phone ring, you just have to get out there and be talking to people and really listening to what's resonating and then following through on those things.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that now with email, people are kind of getting tired of email. And prior to COVID, I was recommending that people send something in the mail because that was becoming easier to get a response to than email. But now no one's in their offices. So you have to go back to, unless you have people's home addresses, which would be kind of weird, you probably have to go back to like emailing and calling and hopefully that they've had their calls forwarded. But that's good to know that you still have to go out there and do what you need to do in order to get the phone to ring.
Yep. So I'm a big fan. And lately I've been doing a lot of podcasts. I've been doing a lot of virtual meetings. I've been doing a lot virtually. So Zoom has been my best friend during all of this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mine too. You're also in a few associations. So the National Speakers Association, I think you're in the Human Resources Organization as well.
Yeah. I've been a member of SHRM, yes, and very active in the past. I'm not as active anymore as I used to be, but I'm still very, very active with the National Speakers Association. And that's been a fabulous group for me because those are my people. Those are my people in terms of my background and people I get and connect with, but they're also my best clients right now because almost every speaker understands the importance of writing their first book or their next book.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So for the associations, it sounds like the National Speakers Association has been a great one. How did you enjoy, in terms of client development, how did you enjoy being a part of the Human Resources Organization? And are there any others that you'd recommend speakers join if their main focus is client development right now?
I'd say thinking about your topic and focusing on where your client or ideal reader is. So for me, when I was in the HR space, absolutely being active with SHRM was number one on my list. Right now, because I'm dealing more with solopreneurs and business owners, more so than, say, HR folks, I have been shifting. And so I've recently become a very active member of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And that's been a wonderful group for me.
Oh, great. I have to write that one down because I also own a law firm for entrepreneurs.
Yes, yes. So I love NABO and they've been great locally as well as nationally. And it's provided me with a good way to not only learn from that group, but also prospect within that group.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I heard you say was a newsletter. And I highly recommend having a newsletter. And for a lot of folks that are listening, they want to attract a corporate audience or a college audience. Most of our speakers fall into one of two categories. Either they're corporate focused or they have college clients. For the people that have corporate clients and who want to start a newsletter, one of their main questions is, well, how do I get people on my list to even have a newsletter? Or how do I start that off? And what would be your recommendations to them? And then kind of how do you format your newsletter? What do you think would be interesting to put in there as well to kind of get yourself on the right foot and get started?
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm a huge newsletter fan. I think that has been one of the consistent things I've been doing for 15 plus years.
Okay.
Probably no longer than that because I was doing it before they were electronic even.
Okay.
So I've been doing them for probably at least 25 years. And what a newsletter allows you to do is allows you to present your thought leadership in front of a broad audience on a regular basis. Because what I typically find is that the right client they don't always think of me at the time that they need me. Mm-hmm. So a newsletter keeps my name top of mind. It keeps my name at least once a month in front of that potential client. So that, and I know so many times I've gotten business from my newsletter because they've been on my list, but they get the newsletter and they say, oh, we have a program coming up. We need Cathy. And so then they think to call me and connect with me. But your first question was about how you get the list in the first place. And that's just always building your list. It's something to be always doing. So right now I'm building my list. Every time I speak, I offer something of value. So if folks are interested, for example, in talking with me after this, they hear me here and they're interested, I'd love to offer a complimentary strategy session. So that's one way. And I encourage people just to send me an email at cathyfyock.com. And that's a great way for me then to not only add you to my list, but actually have a conversation with you and start that dialogue to see what your needs might be and how I might be of service.
Okay, perfect. That's really good advice. That's really good advice. And I'll be sure to link to or include your email in this episode as well.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That is good advice. And I do recommend newsletters. I also do email marketing. So for my list, I'm always sending out things. I was better about it before I had the baby, but I would schedule out my emails for like every quarter. So I would just schedule them out 3 months in advance, and it makes it so much easier. I don't have to worry. And then if I want to send something new out that happened, intermittently, I can do that. I'll just add an email to the block. But if you think about it, for everyone who's listening or everyone who's watching, sending out one newsletter once a month is only 12 newsletters. That's 12 things. Like that's just content 12 times. You could schedule that out for the year you may want to do it per quarter because things may develop in your space that you want to include, but that's not a huge commitment. That seems very doable.
That is so doable. And what I find is I'm always working on my next newsletter. And then I'm a big fan of repurposing writing. So just because I've written it one time doesn't mean it just gets used once. So I write it once and then I use it on LinkedIn and then I use it in my newsletter and then I post it on my website. And then I, think about all the many different uses for that particular chunk of writing. And then I'm a big believer in the whole idea of blog to book. So if you're writing something monthly or weekly, then you can put those things together. And if you write it strategically, you can have a book at the end of the year.
Yeah. And your website is really nice. I really like your branding and all of that fun stuff. And I'll share it so that people who are watching via video can see it. It's beautiful. And you all should definitely check out our website. And I love the branding that you have here. Did you come up with this? Because you almost have like a logo that includes you and it's really fun and very cute. How did you come up with this yourself, or did you have a designer that did kind of your branding?
Well, it's kind of both. It's someone that I had worked with many, many years ago, and I loved her stuff. I just thought it was fun, and it was, it was approachable, accessible. I really liked that. And so she had developed some things for me before. But when I started this new company 6.5 years ago, I went to Carol and said, okay, Carol, this is what I want. And this is what I have in mind. I even had a picture of it. I said, I think it's like a stack of books, and I'm sitting on a stack of books, and I have my glasses in one hand and the book in the other. And she said, okay. And I said, my colors are red and black and white. So it needs to be those colors. And so she came up with something, and I loved it. And I get so many compliments on this branding. And I continue to use Carol to develop little logos or avatars that I can use in my social media.
No, this is awesome. I mean, you're very, very stylish. Okay. So it's awesome that your logo and your branding conveys your personality, how fun, how stylish you are. I think that's great. You've been in the speaking, writing profession for over 20 years. You've seen all the phases at this point that we've seen up to date. What is your advice to folks who are dealing with the pandemic and having to pivot and shift their businesses now? Because you've seen the business in a variety of stages and you've lasted throughout all of them. So what would you say to folks who are very nervous about what we're dealing with now and don't quite know how to act or how to respond to what's happening?
I say, this is one of the frustrations, but it's also what makes it kind of fun and exciting is that you can reinvent yourself. You can rethink. You need to be aware that you will never be able to lock into a business, I don't think, and just don't make a change and have it be exactly the same forever. You're going to always need to be thinking about reinvention and what can I do that's new and what can I do that is fresh. So this notion of continuous improvement, I think needs to be part of your DNA if you're going to survive for the long haul. And but that's what makes it fun and exciting too.
That's true. That is very true. And do you think that now is still a good time to be a speaker in light of what's going on and in light of people not having as many in-person events?
Yeah, because there's never been a more important need for communication, for training, for getting the word out to employees, staff, teams, leadership development has never been more important. So I don't think the need for speakers, for trainers, for keynoters, for inspirers, that's not going away at all. So I think it's just we're having to shift because we're doing it in a different way than what we did before. But that's not all bad. I mean, I'm spending more nights in my own bed. And even though I love travel, there's some good aspects of that. But I think there's a really healthy appetite out in the world for more training and development. So speakers still have a world of opportunity.
That is perfect. That's perfect. And that's actually a really good note to end on. I think that you've given us some amazing advice, great feedback, great tips for how we can even get started writing our book in 6 weeks. And we have the continual resource of your services and then your book. So where can people find you after this? If they want to connect, they want to learn more about your one-on-one services, where can they find you?
Well, my website is my name, CathyFyock.com. And if folks can find me there, or you can send me an email at Cathy@CathyFyock.com. And I'd love to schedule a strategy session with you to talk about your book.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. It was an awesome time speaking to Cathy. And as you all know, in October, we have our Speak Your Way to Cash virtual mastermind coming up. So just head to AshleyNicoleKirkwood.com/2020 retreat if you need more info about that. As of the day that we're recording this, we are 65% sold out. So we're close. So get your seat ASAP if you're watching and you're interested in attending. But I will see you guys soon. And hopefully you all start writing your book. I'll definitely be talking to Cathy about next steps for my book, and we'll go from there. So talk to you guys soon.
Thanks.
All right. Wasn't that interview amazing? If you're anything like me, you have pages full of notes. But here's the thing. Before you head out, I want you to go to Facebook.com and join the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group. That is where I am. That's where a ton of other speakers are, a ton of other people who listen to the show. We all congregate there and chat. And it's 100% free. Now, if you're ready to take your speaking career to the next level, I have 2 ways for you to do that. One, you can go to AshleyNicoleKirkwood.com/SYWTC live replay and pick up the live replay. That training is 7 modules, chock full of information. It's crazy. Go over there, read all about it. Or if you want a more personal experience, you already know that you want to be a speaker, you're ready to fully commit, and you want someone to walk you through it and save you tons of time Googling and doing it on your own, then book a VIP day with me. You can go to AshleyNicoleKirkwood.com, scroll down until you see the VIP day section, and get more information on that there. All right. Thank you guys again for watching. Please do not forget to leave us a review. That is how we keep this train rolling and get some of the best speakers in the world to get on this show. So please, please, please leave a review. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and Facebook in the Speak Your Way to Cash group, Instagram at the Ashley Nicole Show. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you and say hi. All right, y'all have an awesome, awesome day.